Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas.
Good
Right here
evening.
on.
Good evening, Mark. We're looking forward to a very interesting program tonight.
Absolutely, right here on intellectualradio.com. We are also streaming live on YouTube, on Twitter, iHeart, and of course, we have a powerful program here for you tonight. Joining us in the studio is CBS 2's investigative reporter Dorothy Tucker, who did a powerful, riveting special report on the injustice of violence against Black women in Chicago. And we're going to talk about it tonight. Dorothy, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here.
Dorothy, I got to say, that was one of the most provocative pieces that I have ever seen on Chicago television. Kudos to you.
Wow. Thank you. Coming from the great Charles Thomas, I am flattered. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I spent, really hours thinking about what you reported and how you reported it. And we're going to have a great conversation tonight.
I'm looking forward to it. Is your dog going to join us?
You know, she's actually on her way to the other bathroom.
Okay.
She knows the deal.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. I saw the report when it aired, and of course, I've worked with Dorothy on other stories, and I said to Dorothy that this is by far, in my opinion, the most important story that I have seen in television in Chicago.
Chicago,
by
absolutely.
By far. And I believe that this is a transformational moment for Chicago, for Black men, and for the conditions that surround this issue. There was nothing more eye-opening for me to see that. I went through a myriad of emotions, from one, anger, disappointment, and even some guilt of failure on my part. Those are some of the emotions that I felt after viewing this. But mostly I felt motivated to get engaged and to get others engaged in addressing that. So,
Mark, can Dorothy give us sort of the thumbnail of what she reported, so that the audience has an idea of what we're talking about, in case they weren't able to see the story on CBS 2?
Yes,
sure.
But I think, Mark, you've got that some clips or stats. Which are we doing?
Well, I'm gonna let's take a look at the stats, and then Dorothy can come back and give us a thumbnail of it. But here are some of the stats that she reported on. Take a look at this.
If Black women feel like they're targets of crime, they have good reasons. Look at the stats. Simply going through their daily lives makes them vulnerable. Last year at grocery stores, 277 Black women were preyed on by criminals. In and around Chicago parks, 162. Even in the sanctuary of a church, 47 Black women filed police reports. And on the public transportation so many rely on, 769 Black women faced assaults, batteries, robberies, and other crimes just trying to get to work, return home, or go to school.
So those are some of the stats. So give us your thumbnails on this and how this came about.
Okay. So we have a data journalist and we have a data team, and they are always looking at data across the city, the police department, the CTA. They look at crime. They literally look at everything. So whenever we do a story, generally reporters go out, and then the data team may say, oh, by the way, there have been this many robberies at that particular location. There have been this many robberies in the city. And so that's what they are. That's what their mission is. That's what they do. So that person is also a part of our investigative team. And we literally were sitting around one day, just kind of, as we always do, talk about what story's going to come up next, who's working on this. And he said, really, I found something really interesting. He said, I look at the last couple of years and Black women have just over-indexed in almost every category there is, when it comes to rapes, when it comes to batteries. And he said, and then he said, I decided to go back and look at 2021 years, and I think the numbers are just as bad. And literally we all went, what? And then I said to him, please look at the last 20 years. Let me know what you find. And so he did. And he came back to me and said, this is unbelievable. He said, it doesn't make a difference what year you're talking about. When it comes to Black women, they are always at the top of the list in terms of victims. So now you have to look at the larger picture. Black women make up about 16% of the city's population. Yet when it comes to rapes, they're like 40%. Batteries, 38%. Even when it comes to nonviolent crimes like arson and car theft, they still are 20, 30%, 20, 28%. And those numbers, I'll have to pull up the story and get the exact numbers, but I'm pretty close to what they are. When you look at something like trafficking, the face of trafficking seems to be white women because that's what we see on television. But in the city of Chicago, 52% of the women who are victims of trafficking are Black women. And again, we make up that 16% of the population. So, the goal here was just to reveal those facts and then talk to sociologists about the why behind it. How did we get here? Why are the stats so bad? And why has this been ignored for all of these years?
Well, I think that your story is going to compel people to have the conversation, and hopefully that we take some actions to get to the root causes, to start to stem these problems that Black people tend to be at the bottom of all of, and at the top of the list of all the negativities.
Dorothy,
I want to play. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, please. I noticed that in the piece, you did not really talk about the other side of it, whether or not these crimes had been resolved, which I thought was a very effective technique that you used to focus on the women as victims and how the trauma has affected them. I thought that was that was very impactful, because to have gotten involved in the police side of it or the arrest conviction side of it would have been a distraction from what's happening to the women. But that didn't happen in the piece. And it left me wondering, who's doing this? Who are these criminals who are victimizing Black women?
Well, let me answer like I usually do. That's not the point. It's not the point of who's doing this. This story is about the women. It's about the victims. And I think if these were white women, would that be the first thing we'd be asking? We wouldn't say who's committing the crime. We would be all over the fact that, oh my God, look at this stat. Look at the fact that they are victims. I will tell you, though, when we go to the police, as you very well know, many times these crimes are not resolved. Many times they go unresolved and the police are still searching. Many times Black women don't follow up because of fear, because of concern. And because sometimes they just think that nobody's going to really pay any attention to them. They're going to be looked at, and the tables are going to be turned. They walk into the police station and they say that I was the victim of a rape by somebody that I know, or I was a victim of a assault. And the police look at them and the first question was, well, what did you do? Well, how were you dressed? And this is the same kind of mentality of, well, who did this? Well, no, stop for a minute here. Look at this woman who is in front of you saying that I have been a victim. And, I think it's important that we focus on the victim, because again, a lot of times we don't know. Can we assume that perhaps, given the fact that many of these crimes happen in the Black neighborhood, that there is a good chance that the offenders were African American? Yes, I think we can probably assume that. If you look at the larger picture, though, when you look at crimes in the suburbs, if they're white women and they're in the suburbs, there's a good chance that the offenders were also white. But when
But
we
don't
cover
the
crimes,
but don't the offenders need to be apprehended and punished, separated
absolutely.
from civil society? And don't we have to put a lot of focus on that, making sure that these people, particularly those who repeat these offenses over and over again?
Absolutely, we do. And that is something that, this series is not over. We will be eventually looking at
Very good.
just, we will look at just the, what we're calling, I forget what it's called, the rate of crimes that don't get solved. We'll be looking at those stats as well. But for now, we still want to focus on the women. And I think no matter what we do, the focus has to be, though, still on the women, because so many times the cases go through and the offenders are deemed they're let off, nothing happens to them and they're able to repeat again. The offenses become misdemeanors, and, there's a whole other section that we will eventually look at. But I want to focus first on just the victims. And 20 years of this, Charles. We
How,
can talk about,
how do those numbers compare to Black men who are victims of crime?
if I remember correctly, I think when it comes to murders, I think Black men, that may be the only category that Black men over index in when it compares. But for every other crime, it's Black women who are at the top of it.
Yeah, I think I read a national statistic that shows, and I was looking it up, that Black women are 18 times more likely to be killed than white women are in this country. I loved the fact that you focused on the victims, the women. I was literally in a conference with a group of white lawyers 2 days ago. And we started talking about this story. I've been talking about this story to everybody that I come in contact with, and sending it to them, asking them to take a look at it. And then I wanted to get their thoughts afterwards. And it wasn't intended to have this conversation. We were supposed to have the conversation about a different subject matter, but it went off into this conversation. And the question that one of the lawyers asked, in a very reluctant way, he asked the same question that you alluded to, Charles, as, do we know who's doing these crimes? And I said to him immediately, that's not the point. That's not the point.
That's a big part of the point now.
No, it's not.
The people that are doing this need to stop.
But that's not the point. That's not the point of the story. That's
I
not
got
the point of the story.
I got that, which I said to Dorothy. I thought it was a very effective technique to start here, focus on what's happening to these human beings. But the bottom line is, there's a lot going on out there where people think they can take advantage of Black women, and we need to deal with that.
I agree with you. But here's the thing that aggravates me somewhat. It's almost kind of like if you raise a question, as soon as you watch it, you say, well, who's doing this? As if we say, well, perhaps it is majority Black men who are doing this. Does that make it
Black males?
Black males? Does that make it okay?
Not men. Those aren't men that attack women.
Absolutely. But if you kind of say, well, if you focus on that, then there are some in society who will go, oh, well, ain't my problem. Not my issue. Is Black on Black crime. Is Black males who are doing this. Well, so what? And I don't care that it's Black males who are doing this. It is Black women who are victims. So we need to address this. We need to figure out just why this is happening, no matter who the offenders are. It doesn't make a difference, because I don't want it to be lost I don't want it to be lost that we Black women are the majority of the victims. I don't want that to be lost as we say, well, it's okay because, well, it's probably Black males.
How far back did your research go? I mean, that your team, when they
21
researched 20 plus years? 21.
Yes, 21.
That's a long time. I mean, I
That's
get it. But yeah, the reason, Mark, you've got some more clips. You've got some more clips you want to play?
Yeah, we do have some more clips that we want to play.
Go for that. Go for that.
Yeah, I want to play a clip that was just riveting to me, and this was the story about Sierra Jameson and Dorothy. We'll take a look at that clip, and then you can tell us about Sierra Jameson. Take a look.
I get in my car every day, and I'm concerned about what will happen to me. I don't know if today's the day somebody want to carjack me. I don't know if today's the day that they want to rob me. I don't know. And that's scary about being in Chicago and being a Black woman, because we are not protected.
Consider a mundane trip to the gas station. In 2022, 66 Black women were carjacked or robbed at the pump.
I was filling up my gas for the week. It was over the weekend. I was filling up my gas for the week, for the work week.
Sierra Jameson was one of them.
I had a young gentleman come up to me and asked me, did I smoke? I said, no, sir, I do not smoke.
She wasn't driving this car. She was driving her prized 2018 black Jeep Wrangler. That's what the man wanted.
He was like literally coming right here. Bitch, give me your keys.
Even though he had a kitchen knife, this single mother and aspiring nurse with a 6-year-old son with autism said no.
What made me say no? Because I observed him. I could tell that he was really, I could tell that he really didn't know what he was doing, because he was flinchy, he was nervous.
She also saw 2 other women nearby who had her back and a bat.
So I'm doing this. I said, give me your bat, give me your bat. So he did me like this. He let go, then he ran.
Jameson was naturally relieved, but then she got angry.
It was a few men here after the incident saying that this young man was standing here the whole day.
But he didn't attack anyone until she came along.
Not sure, because I'm a young Black woman. He wanted to target me. I know he didn't target the man that came up and through here. I guess he feel like I was gonna be vulnerable, be like, huh, get the key. But no, he got the wrong female.
We need to take you back to Sierra Jameson's story. Remember, she survived the attempted carjacking.
I'm grateful. I went home to my son. I thank God every day that I'm here, because it could have went a different way.
Jameson went home to her son on that day. But less than a month after this interview, she was the victim of another crime. Only this time, she would never see her son again.
We're honoring her legacy. We're honoring her life.
Jameson was murdered just days after celebrating her 30th birthday, found strangled inside her garage, her body lying next to her Jeep Wrangler. The family released balloons in her memory.
My niece is no longer here in flesh, but my niece is always in here in spirit.
Dorothy, tell us about this.
Well, let me just say, looking at it now, based on your questions, I think to myself, yes, there's a good possibility. I don't know the race of the man who tried to carjack her. I can look at the neighborhood, and if I remember looking at the police report, probably African American. I do know that the man who is now charged with her murder is indeed African American. But I feel like I don't care. What I want to know is, why is it that we can sit here and say and do nothing? Why is it that we sit back and we'll just let a woman be the victim of an attempted carjacking and then end up dead 3 months later, I think it was. It's the first time something like that has happened to me as a reporter, that someone that I established somewhat of a relationship with, because Charles, as you know, a lot of times before you interview people, you have a lot of phone calls with them, because here she was about to go on television and say what happened to her. And, I had to just kind of establish a relationship and find the right time, and then figure out, how we're going to tell her story and what was important. So we do that. And then, I was on my way home on the bus when I get a phone call from the photographer who says, "Guess what I heard?" And I was devastated. I was devastated because as you saw, she was so full of life. She was so proud that she had really kind of fended off this carjacker, only to later be murdered by, again, the person who was charged is a former coworker.
Yeah, well, my part, a great deal of my anger is that when I look at the history of this and see that you went back 20 plus years and found that these statistics were the same, Black women at the top of the chart for being the most victims. This sends a message to me that, and to the question that was raised about, who's doing it, this sends a message to me that Black women don't count. And we as Black men have to make sure that Black women know that they count. All of the Black women that I have had conversations with since Wednesday when this first aired, including public officials, judges, and several women that I have conversation today, all of them said the exact same thing, that this has to be led by Black men. And if it's not led by Black men, that Black men show that want to protect Black women, it's over.
Mark, you know that, as Dorothy acknowledged earlier on tonight, the vast, I gotta think, I'm going to presume, and I think we all would agree that the vast majority of these crimes against Black women are being committed by young Black males. That's happening. Where they're happening, who they're happening to, they're in that universe. Okay, that's where these crimes are happening. In that same universe, one of the real ironies of this story, in that universe, Black women are raising the young Black men alone. And that is a piece that we have to deal with. These things did not happen I know it was back in the Stone Age, but they didn't happen. Nobody attacked. I wasn't worried about my mama being these kinds of things happening to her back in the day. But these young Black men who are not parented, I should say, they're not parented by Black men, are committing these crimes. And 21 years ago is not a long time. And the absence of the Black father in the home, I believe, is a contributing factor to the antics, to the criminal antics of these offenders.
Well, it may be a contributing factor, but there are systemic causes to the Black man not being in the home. And in fact, Dorothy, let me hold on. Let me finish. Dorothy, one of the people that you interviewed was the professor at DePaul University, who pointed it out, who said, and she studies this, who said in her interview with you that the root causes to Black women being targeted in these communities is because of the systemic problems of that we don't have the economic base in these communities. And so Black women are easier targets. When you have 47% unemployment in Black males between the ages of 18 to 25, when you have Black youth at 80% unemployed in these communities, these conditions are produced. That's why I think it's more important to focus on this rather than saying it's these people who are doing this and then somehow putting the women into an invisible hole. I don't want to do that.
Let me point out a couple of things. Let me to your question about why aren't the Black men there, Charles? Do you remember when if you look at history, when the welfare system was established, right? I mean, initially it was established to help rural white women, Then it became more urban, and Black mothers were. And what was the punishment? The only way a Black woman was able to get welfare was if there was no man in the house. So the system made her get rid of that man, or the man would sneak in the house. But if there was a man in the house, she was not going to be able to get any money for the children. So the system basically said, you have to choose. So what does that do? That means that, you grow up saying, okay, fine, I can be father, the man can father the child, but he can't be here with me. He can't be here. So that's why. So the core right there is why there are so many families that from the beginning did not have that. All right.
You know,
So now let's put something else out there. Let us say that if for the last 20 years, I want you to change the face. If for the last 20 years that these were white women who were victims, and they were Black males creating these crimes, guess what the police would do? Guess how much harder they would probably work to prosecute? Guess how much harder they would probably work to find them, to arrest them? Guess how much harder they would work, they would show up when it came time for these cases to come in court. But the reason that we have this, and you're absolutely right, the reason that this continues is because of a system that allows, it says up, it's just a Black man, up, it's a Black woman, and there just isn't as much of a push to solve that crime. When you call 911, and you've seen these stories, you call 911 in Grand Crossing, and it's going to take much longer for the police to get there than if you call 911 in Wrigleyville. Those
I get
stats.
I get
So,
it. I get
okay.
it. But at the same time, the whole notion, the idea, the natural order of things where fathers should be in the home raising their children, we have a problem with 3 out of 4, probably higher now, 3 out of 4 Black children being raised in a single parent household. We have Mandine Muhammad, who is watching and listening. So sorry he isn't able to call in, because he does a lot of work on social media about Black fatherhood and beginning to restore the premium to Black fatherhood, which is, I believe, going after the root causes of this. It's not the only cause.
I completely agree with you.
But we have to begin talking about it and stop acting like we don't share a part of the problem. We have to, if we can recognize what they've done, like for instance, with the welfare system, we have to compensate for what we know they're doing to us, and in order to improve our communities, our families, and our communities.
Here's the thing.
Well, what they have to do, one is they have to stop murdering us when they stop us for a simple. Hey, Charles, please, Charles, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me, Charles, when I'm talking. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. You make your point. You make your point. You make your point, and I'll make mine.
Sorry, Mark.
Okay.
Make your point.
All right. So when they stop the disparity on how they treat Black men as they treat white men, as I said to you, we have an economic disparity here in Chicago. Boys between the ages of 18 to 25, unemployed and out of school at 47%, to their white male counterpart at 6%. Those conditions are produced. That's not because of who they are or their inability to perform. We have to deal with the systemic problems that produce the kinds of conditions that we have. Black men being incarcerated at 7 or 8 times the rate of white men doing the exact same thing. Those kinds of injustices we have to deal with. We can't sit here, and I'm not going to sit and suggest that this is all Black men's fault, as though Black men don't have some responsibility in what decisions what they're doing. But we have to recognize that these conditions are produced, and they're not produced by Black people.
I think if I can weigh in, I'm so happy you guys are talking about it. I'm happy that we're talking about it because I think what you see, is it Black men? Is it the criminal system? Is it the prosecution system? Is it the justice system? Is it welfare? Is it the educational system? I think the bottom line is that all of those things need to be addressed. And those conversations need to be had. And that is why we did this story. We did this story so that there would people would begin to talk about it, and policymakers in particular would begin to say, well, what can we do? What are the systemic issues and what are some
Fox's childhood memories are gut-wrenching. This is where the leaves come in.
I'm sorry.
so I applaud you too for really just having me on to even talk about it because what we wanted to see was people who are in position to make a change be enraged, be outraged.
I want to play a clip. I want to play a clip of the conversations in the community. And then I want to play it, and then I want to come back because there was something that I observed in this clip that I thought was astounding.
So let's go back to the beginning. How do you address something that has been part of Chicago's DNA for decades? Our investigation sparked conversations in the community and calls for action.
It has to matter collectively to everyone that Black women are suffering in this way. I was shocked. I've been a judge, prosecutor, public defender.
The CEO of the Chicago Urban League.
And my selfish desire was to make Black female victimization a priority for us.
In response to hearing about this report, what should be done?
Chief Strategy Officer of the North Lawndale Employment Network.
I want generations after me to understand that the color of our skin is important and that change needs to come about.
A longtime community resident.
Today.
And mother.
What can we do as women?
Black Voices for Change.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Gathered on the south and west sides of the city.
We begin tonight with breaking news.
To talk about the data from our CBS 2 investigation.
By day of week, by location type.
I want to see us have a very specific strategy to recruiting and engaging Black women.
Maybe a call to meet with the chief of police, to meet with the mayor. He is a father. I think that would be something that we could make happen.
My hope is that with sounding the alarm and working with other organizations who mentor both young men and young women is to spread the word. To spread the word in churches, to spread the word in community organizations.
What do we do? Do a policy need to be put in place?
Their calls for action resonating with one local alderman.
We've heard it, on the peripheral. Black women are being disproportionately impacted with crime. But your segments really put it into context. I think it's important that the city of Chicago put forward some type of initiative to deal with this important issue. What I want to do is get folks together from Department of Family Support Services, Chicago Park District, Chicago Police District, Department of Housing, and the mayor's office to figure out what we can do and talk about first what the problem is. Because I think that this is about social justice.
I think this happens to be the most important social justice issue of our time, and I think that this story is one that should have national implications on it. But I have a question, Dorothy, that I noticed that Gilbert Villegas, a Latino, was the only person responding to this. Had you reached out to any of the Black public officials, the Black men in particular?
Well, first, he was the only one who initially responded to our outreach. Not the only one. He was one of he was one of the first ones, I will say. We sent clips of the first two stories that we did, one with Sierra Jameson, and we also sent a clip to the clip of just the overall stories to about 232 city, county, state, and even, President Obama and Michelle Obama, asking them all to look at this and respond. We sent it to a couple of presidents of HBCUs, just again, get the reaction and get a response. And Alderman Villegas, I have to say, was the first one to reach out and not just say, I want to talk about it, but to say, I want to propose a resolution. And so that's why we immediately did that story on him. Afterwards, I did hear from the lieutenant governor, and then, I heard from Kim Fox. They called. I also heard from the Obama Foundation. They said they would get back to me, and they initially expressed some concern, and then said they would get back. Haven't yet heard a follow-up from them. I obviously, as you can see, I can mention them because I can count them on one hand, those who really followed up with us. I reached out again to Kwame Raoul. I had a brief conversation. I had a conversation with him. But I have to say, it was Villegas, and then it was a community group. Chazda Martin, and I was really impressed that a Black man who was a strategy officer at the North Lawndale Job Network, he literally saw me somewhere and said, let me stop you. I want to do something. And then, I reached out to him, and he had already started the plans of gathering all these women in the room that you saw, including the Chicago Urban League president, Karen Wilson Freeman. So, we have had some response, and I'm encouraged. I think that eventually, and from what I understand, there will be a hearing. There will be continued discussions of this resolution. So I'm prayerful, is what I am.
All right. Speaking of Kim Fox, I know that we only have you for a brief time, so I want to get through these clips. So let's watch the clip. You were able to get Kim Fox to talk about something that she had been reluctant to talk about. Let's watch.
Their voices are not alone. Even the county's top prosecutor is weighing in, not only in her official role, but as a survivor, over and over again.
So who am I? I am Kim Fox. I'm the Cook County State's Attorney.
I was sexually abused by a relative from the age of about 5 until 7.
It is our position, based on the facts, the evidence, and the law.
I was sexually assaulted on my way home from school by 2 strangers when I was 8 in the Austin neighborhood.
We believe that in this case, justice has been served.
I was sexually assaulted in college as a 20-year-old at Southern Illinois University. Yeah. There have been moments where I can feel, smell, taste what happened to me. And I find myself saying to myself, look at the leaves.
We wanted to interview the county's top prosecutor to get her reaction to our CBS 2 investigation.
I was heartbroken.
It's very aggravating.
Rage keeps me up at night.
A 20-year analysis revealing how Black women in Chicago have always borne the brunt of crime. They make up only 16% of the population, but account for an alarming percentage of victims of violent and nonviolent crimes.
I'll be honest, Dorothy, I did not want to look at your story.
We now understand Fox's initial response. Her trauma is generational.
My mother, my aunts, my friends, myself.
Fox has publicly acknowledged her childhood abuse.
I am a crime survivor.
At a survivors rally in a crowd of women and men.
I was sexually assaulted as a child.
Fox explained the importance of speaking out.
I am here because I want more than anything to make sure that what happened to me does not happen again to me or to any of us.
As a Black woman walking into the world.
Fox finally found the courage to watch our story.
And out of respect for you and your work, I did watch.
She also found the courage to be more candid with us about the little girl with a big smile.
I was in my mother's womb. I was in my mother's womb, and I wasn't safe.
Fox's mother, Ganelle Wilson, was 8 months pregnant with her baby girl, living in the old Cabrini Green housing development and getting ready to celebrate her son's first birthday when a stranger broke into their home.
And she woke up in the middle of the night to find a man standing above her with a knife, threatening to kill her if she didn't tell him where the gifts were that he saw her bringing in for my brother's party. So for the entirety of the life that my mother had, that I lived with her, she never had a peaceful night's sleep. And we learned to live with her screams.
You remember those screams?
I sleep with those screams.
Dorothy, what's the significance of the leaves?
She was going home. She was 8 years old in the Austin community. And she left school on her way home. And 2 men in a white van, I think she said, pulled up and snatched her and threw her into an abandoned, empty building and raped her at 8. And she talks about how she looked at the leaves and she lay there and told herself, just concentrate on the leaves. It'll all be over soon. It'll all be over soon. And she said that, sometimes in the toughest moments of her career, she would think about the leaves and remind herself that it will all be over soon.
I had a chance to speak with Kim Fox Friday at the mayor's breakfast. And, I thanked her for her courage to come out and to talk about something that she hadn't talked about for a long time, because I think that it is obviously is very important. And from the position that she is in, we know that there are far more people who may be in positions of power and in other positions that may have experienced similar, situations that have not been able to talk about it. And we also know that there have been people, many people who have experienced those same situations, either from family members or somebody else at a young age, that their lives have spiraled out of control as a result of it. Listen, I have personal experience with this. My sister was murdered April 9th of 1990. She was 35 years of age. She was strangled to death and left out in an alley, as a piece, of garbage. When we talk with the Metro-Dade police investigators, this was not a case of importance because my sister had drug issues that she was dealing with, and they just didn't see it as important. But I've also seen other cases where there were white women who had similar issues with drugs, addictions, and that sort of thing. But their cases were investigated, and their cases, in many cases, were resolved far more than Black women's cases.
Yeah.
I can believe that. Absolutely. I mean, that's been happening historically uh, to Black people as crime victims for a long time. But we have that, we know that, we know that. And we know that we are the ones, Black men in particular, are the ones who can address the issue. We have the power to address the issue. System be damned. We don't need a system. I don't need a system that if I father a child, I have to parent the child. I don't need a system to tell me that. And there are plenty of Black men out there who are doing that. And and I don't care whether or not you, what the other aspects of your social condition are. If you're not in the penitentiary, you can parent the child that you bring into the world.
I think, there is definitely, truth to what you say, Charles, but, I mean, there are so many people like me. I mean, I've raised 3 children, 2 Black boys. And, I sent them, we raised them well, and we sent them to some of the best schools in the world. And we gave them a superior education in terms of opportunities. But there have been times when those educated Black boys, like so many educated Black boys, like so many just Black boys, have been stopped by police because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And they were raised well, merely because, so, sometimes it's not about what you do. You have to address the systemic issues. Otherwise, children who, even if they are raised, as you say, by those strong Black fathers and raised in that household, they will become victims. I purposely, when my boys were home, I would have them only take the car that had the signs, or it had their college, signs on the door, or in the windshield. So when the police stopped them, they would immediately see that they were college educated Black boys, and maybe step back for a moment, maybe hesitate for a moment. But my boys tell me stories of being stopped. They now live in LA, but when they lived in New York, they tell me those kinds of stories. And, I mean, what do we do as Black mothers? What your mother did and my mother did? We get on our knees and we pray. But you gotta address, you can't just, it's not just, and that all my point is, it's not just one thing. It is not just one thing.
I mean, I've been stopped by the police. I've been stopped by the police. And I know that they just stopped me because what's he doing driving that car, kind of thing. I get it, but I survived. I survived, and I didn't belabor that or cause that to stop me from doing what I needed to do.
How many times you get stopped?
2 or 3 in my life. Maybe.
There are some Black men who've been stopped 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
I get it. I get that. But that doesn't mean that you resign from the system and become a criminal and begin attacking Black women.
Absolutely, and I don't think they do. They absolutely don't.
Well, there are some people who were stopped for a mere traffic stop, but never made it home for a traffic stop, that were Black. So
that were Black, and
yeah.
that's a great that's a movie theme quite a bit. I've seen that many times. You get stopped, like the young man in New York that ended up in Rikers Island for years for nothing. I mean, that's happened without a doubt. It's happened.
Just
But
imagine.
I just don't know what that means. How that fits to if your father a child parented. I don't know why. And why that isn't a message that we are constantly giving to our young men and women, for that
And
matter.
there
We have to bring that child, bring that message to them over and over and over again.
Charles, you really should consider volunteering, for those organizations that exist. that actually do exactly what you're talking about. And the reason I know is because my oldest son volunteered for a program for young Black fathers, and he would just go and help out when he was in high school, whenever he could, as part of his service and that sort of thing. So I know that those programs exist. What we need, and again, think about this: if those are the kind of programs that exist that teach young Black men how to be better fathers, those programs need more funding. Those programs need more support so that they can have more men in their program. There are programs that teach young Black mothers how to be better mothers. Those programs need support. So again, another little piece of the puzzle.
We have a couple of more clips, Dorothy, and I want to get to them, and
Okay,
I certainly
go
want
ahead.
to get to I want to talk about. I want to do the clip for Laura, Kenya, and Naya, and then you can talk about them, and then I want to come back to the final clip of Kim Fox. Let's take a look.
And they came from right here.
Kenya Merrills and her mom were attacked by a mob of robbers on the Red Line at 95th Street after leaving a downtown college.
He punched me in my face.
I had already knew I was finna die. So I just said, let me just shield my daughter so she won't die.
Fortunately, mom and daughter were not seriously hurt. We can't say the same for Nia Williams, out for a late night snack.
I feel like I had a life-changing moment that's forever gonna stick with me, simply because I went to go get something to eat.
A couple of gyros at Maggie's, that's all she wanted. It was here in Bronzeville a few months ago where her life changed.
I wasn't in an argument with anyone. I wasn't at a party. I wasn't caught in a crossfire.
The police report listed the incident as a street crime. Last year, 1,130 Black women were attacked and injured on Chicago's streets.
I was targeted.
3 strangers, unprovoked, started screaming at Williams inside the restaurant. Then they followed her to her car.
That night, I feared for my life.
What happened next was that life-changing moment.
You saw the gun.
He shot, boom, 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 and just start shooting at our head.
Her tone today, kind of matter of fact.
And that was it. I didn't even know I was shot right away.
But these photos from that night, her hospital bed, scream agony.
The biggest burn I ever felt. My teeth were blown out. I have no teeth here on the side. I was spitting out bullets and teeth at the same time.
Williams misses her smile,
yes,
but she acknowledges her blessings.
Most people don't survive, being shot in the face. I'm just thankful.
What's her situation now, Dorothy? How's she doing?
She is in the process of raising money. She has a GoFundMe because in order to get the plastic surgery that she needs, it's costly. She's afraid to go out at night now, and she continues to push for the police to find the offender. There was video of the 3 people who were there, but police have still not caught them. And again, I'm going to go back to race here. If the headline, if I'd done a story on 20 years, in the last 20 years, white women have been disproportionately impacted by crime, I think you would see outrage in this city. And so it becomes kind of a matter of just how much attention are we going to pay to this. And, I think a crime like Naya's should get the same kind of attention if she were not a Black woman. But so often, again, in our system, and this is something that, perhaps those in the justice system need more training on how to recognize their biases. Maybe there's an unconscious bias that exists, I think, And that needs to be addressed. Kim Fox talked about that. Kwame Raoul talked about that and the training that they've had. Another piece of the pie, let's just throw that in as well as something. But the bottom line is that her case is still unresolved.
All right, let's take a look, listen to this final clip by Kim Fox, and then we'll get your final comments.
Fox's childhood memories are gut-wrenching. This is where the leaves come in.
I don't talk about it in depth publicly often. Because if you dig down into it, it is almost like it happened yesterday.
The year, 1980. Place, Austin Community, near Byford Elementary. The second grader was on her way home from school when she was snatched and raped by two men. She did what she had to survive.
The survival technique when you are being assaulted in that fashion. I remember it was an abandoned building, looking out at a tree and focusing on the leaves.
The leaves. Today, they're a reminder of her strength.
In the grips of the most difficult time of this job, I would write daily, look at the leaves. It'll be over.
Despite her heartbreaking history,
By day of week, by location type.
with race, sex, and age, Fox found the data, the numbers, the hard truth.
Jarring.
Here's what hit home for the survivor of sexual assault. Black girls suffer more than any other group. From 2001 to 2022, for every white girl attacked and injured, there were 18 black girls hurt.
You couldn't have told me that it was that bad, but when I think about, well, who do you know that hasn't been a victim of a crime?
Even as the county's top prosecutor, Fox was stunned by the findings in our investigation.
We have a real problem here. We have a fundamental issue with valuing black women across all measures.
The real issue?
What is it that it makes it difficult for us to see the difference between an R. Kelly victim and a Harvey Weinstein one?
Is there something before you leave that you will try and do?
I think in this last year that I have to be intentional around the focus on this class of victims, because it has become incredibly clear that this has been an ignored class.
Fox will turn to black women to help her focus.
It's urgent to me in this administration to do all that we can, both internally with our policies and practices, and externally with our partners, and most importantly with the communities that we serve, to bring them in, to figure out how collectively we address this issue.
Her commitment to support a commission on women and girls.
That harm happened to me 40-something years ago. And I still struggle to talk. I think being vocal about my own experience and the freedom that I then think it gives to others to say what has happened to them.
Talking, says Fox, about those painful, agonizing lived experiences is necessary to spark change for black women in Chicago.
And this is generations in the making and will take a significant amount of time to address. It's urgent. It's urgent.
It is urgent. We don't have all the answers, but the conversations are starting, and we are committed to tracking this epidemic and working towards a solution so we can all feel safer in the communities where we live, work, and love.
Yeah, Mark, I would like to present the Emmy to Dorothy Tucker. That was incredible. The access that you had during that piece to the victims was something I have never seen in Chicago television.
Without question. I think there's also a Peabody Award. We're going to contact 60 Minutes.
All right.
No, but the truth is that, and I said it to Dorothy, that I have not seen a story, a more important story, and more eye-opening for us. This is eye-opening for us to figure out how we bring everybody that is germane to dealing with these issues that produce this sort of thing and grapple with them and tackle them. We are not going to arrest our way out of these problems. We have to invest our way out. We have to educate our way out, and we have to figure out how we do that. But we certainly, and in this case, I think that it is important that we keep the attention focused on the victim, because whenever we don't, we put them under the shelf and say, you're not that important. That has been violated. It's more important that we focus over here. To me, that is just a deflection to not really deal with it, not want to deal with it. It's just like a person who has been assaulted, not wanting to deal with it. And then we kind of, in an ironic way, tend to do the same thing. We've got to get away from doing that, and we've got to grapple this thing head on.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I do think, though, that we have to make sure that the people that commit these crimes are separated from civil society. The people that do the kinds of things that we've heard about over the past hour, they don't need to be around the rest of us. And I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. Dorothy, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and we'll look for you at the award ceremonies.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Bringing it
All
attention.
right. See you next time. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye. Charles?
Well, we have a, I think we all acknowledge at this point, we have a crime problem in Chicago that has worsened in the past couple of years, and we're going to have to deal with it. And I have my ideas on how we deal with it. You have yours. Brandon Johnson certainly has his. I really believe it's a community problem. Communities are made up of families, and not geography, but families. And those families have been neglected. And I think we have to find ways to support families, particularly in the Black community. We have to begin to create a North Star, which is a nuclear family that works where we have two adults raising one child, or more than one child, but two adults in a household. Again, we have to do that. And I think it worked in the past. It can work in the future. Too many times today, we have the government trying to get involved in raising our children. And we see where that has gone. It hasn't worked very well for us at all. And back in the days when we had segregation and Jim Crow, we had stable families. And I think we had fewer problems in the community that related to the kinds of crimes that we're seeing today, where women are attacked. The same women who have been that we hear about in much of the popular culture today. If you encourage that in popular culture, if they're bees and hoes, then you don't have the respect for women that we used to have. And I think that's part of the problem here.
Yeah, it is a part of the problem, but we also have to make sure that there's an infrastructure put in place so that people in these communities have opportunity, that they will be able to access good educations, They will be able to access good paying jobs so that they're not in these high risk activities or certainly at risk, so that they can be available to have holistic families. So we have to approach these conditions that produce these kinds of outcomes. And if we don't deal with those, we are going to continue to see these kind of outcomes. One of the things that I had a conversation with Dorothy about is doing the analysis of communities that have stabilized communities of income and equity, that to find out what are the numbers, how do those numbers translate in those communities as it relates to this same this same type of situation. But uh, this has certainly motivated me, and I have reached out to and will continue to reach out to, I call them all, as Kim responded, all of the partners, because all of us are partners in this. All of us have to be engaged in finding a way to turn these situations around. And again, yes, people have to be held accountable, but we have to produce situations that will prevent people from going down these paths.
Well, Dorothy Tucker, I'm looking forward to the next installment of this, where she addresses some of the issues that we've talked about tonight, and some of the causes, and some of the and what people have to say. I mean, you and I say what we say, but there's over 1 million people out there that also have opinions about how this should happen. But the important thing, and I think Dorothy did her job as a journalist, she has us talking, because that's all that we need to do. We need to begin that momentum in order to really attack the problem and make sure that our elected leaders and our officials in the police department, the state's attorney's office, everywhere else that has some relationship to this problem is working on it, is aware of it, and moving toward a solution. Because right now, I don't really see that we're doing that in very many places, particularly here in Cook County in Chicago.
Well, it certainly has engaged me, and I am making phone calls. I've been to several of the events, the King Day events, and over the past few days, and that has been my number one issue. I've had conversations with Kwame Raoul, conversations with Danny Davis, contacting them all, asking them if they've seen the report. Unfortunately, many of them have not seen the report. And so what I did was I sent the report to them right there as we as we spoke, because I think that it is just that important that we've got to get everybody who has certainly some influence and in positions to do something. We've got to get them engaged in it.
You know, you could, can we put the link to the report on this chat stream? Is that possible?
No, I don't. I'll have to see if
We
I
have
can
to figure it out. Okay.
I'll
Got it.
figure it out. I'll see if I can figure it out to get the link up there. Yeah. I'll figure out how to get that
Hey, man,
to us.
changing the subject. How about this weather? Man,
Yeah.
the cold.
Yeah.
The cold.
Yeah.
The cold.
Yeah.
And
It's
I,
cold.
it not only is that, man, I'm looking at people who are basically being kept on buses right down the street from where I live. They're being kept on CTA buses. These are the migrants, of course, on CTA buses. And I can see behind the buses, there is a row of porta potties. And hey, man, and you see them huddled against this weather. They don't have the clothing that they need. I know this home has tried to, we've gone through older clothing that we don't need, or we aren't using, I should say. And we've been trying to help people who are on the street, but I know the governor put out an urgent appeal to the governor of Texas to stop sending migrants to Chicago because of the weather. And the governor was quite exemplary. He said that's the reason that the governor of Texas should not send people here. But in Texas, if you look at the weather, I mean, it's 20 degrees in Dallas, in Houston, and in San Antonio,
Memphis, Tennessee,
and in and in Austin. So I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think they had 2.5 or 3 inches of snow in Memphis.
Yeah, it's crazy, but the weather's horrible. But the weather is horrible not only in Texas. The weather is horrible not only in Illinois, but the weather is horrible all over the country. And you have these people who were allowed into the country. They're now literally at risk of freezing to death in the North American winter. And this is one of the biggest travesties I've certainly seen during my citizenship in the United States, that we have this kind of thing going on the streets of our cities. And these people are going to cities, by the way. They aren't going to Podunk. It's a backwoods town because there are no jobs there. There's nothing for them there. They know that the jobs are in the metropolitan areas, and that's where they're headed as they leave Texas. This is an incredibly bad situation.
Yeah, so I'm going to put in the chat. You can actually go on YouTube and find it. It's Investigating Injustice. Investigating Injustice with Dorothy Tillman. I'm sorry, Dorothy Tucker. For those who would like to see it. I would recommend everybody to contact your alderman, contact your state reps, contact your contact the mayor. I've had a conversation with the mayor this past weekend that this issue has to be as urgent, just as urgent as and attention as we are given to the migrant situation. Not that the migrant situation doesn't need to be taken care of, but this is this is the social justice issue of the day, and it requires immediate and urgent and surgical-like attention. So contact your representatives and let's put pressure on them. But let's all of us get together and figure out how we liberate our communities. But going back to the weather, I had to take my dog out, and he was not happy. He was not happy. He went out, and man, he just did his thing. And so I went yesterday. I went looking for a pair of boots. Well, not a pair of boots, 2 pair of boots for him. And I went out to the flea market out there on 127th Street that I usually go and visit every Sunday just as a kind of a relaxation thing after church. And there's this woman who has this huge dog vendor thing, right? To see, and I went out there to see if she's got any boots. And man, she's got these boots. Because I need the extra large because he has these very long and wide paws. And so she gave me these boots, and they've got lights on them. they've got lights on the bottom of them. And so I came back and I put them on him. He was a little bit awkward, but when he got going, man, he was running all over the snow. He was running all over the snow, and I had to suffer and endure that sub-zero degree weather. But it's cold. It's cold, very cold. I feel sorry. I had to go running around to all of my buildings just to make sure that we had proper insulations and running water, so that I don't have any pipe freezing. And so far, we've been good. But, I've heard of a couple of situations where people have had some, they've run into some frozen pipes. And that's just not fun when it thaws out.
Well, I mean, I hope your buildings are all right. I'm warm.
Yeah, I'm good.
And all that, but I'm just very concerned about people on the street. There are more people on the street in Chicago today, more homeless people today than there have been in the last, I don't know what, 10 years, 20 years? Because,
well, I certainly know that.
Stop, you're interrupting me. Because there are so many new people who have come into the city over the past year who are homeless. So that we have a much larger homeless population now than we had a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, we got to deal with it. And they're doing what they can to deal with it, and they need all of the partners to get involved to help this situation. So, and they'll deal with it. Speaking of that, but there was a woman out in the suburbs that went to a party on Saturday night, left that party abruptly, and they found her dead outside of a library. A public library. I forget what the suburb was. I was listening to that on the news today.
Really?
Yes.
What suburb? What suburb? Do you have any idea?
I think it was. No. It was a northern suburb.
Okay.
It was a northern suburb, and apparently she was at some event, and a house party or something, and she left that event abruptly. According to the news, and they found her in the front of a public library, non-responsive, and she probably froze to death because she was obviously not dressed for the weather. I don't know that anybody could survive.
And they haven't done any toxicology or anything like that yet.
No, because the story was just reported. So I'm sure that by the time that, tomorrow we'll have more information on what the circumstances surrounding that. Sounds like she got into some kind of disagreement with somebody because they said that she left abruptly from where she was. So she probably got into an argument with somebody or something. But I would have to think that, somebody was probably maybe a little inebriated to run out into the frigid weather like that. Because I couldn't imagine somebody just being upset and put themselves at that kind of risk.
Well, the kinds of drugs that are out there now. I mean, people pass out all the time. I mean, we hear about the overdoses. And those people many times end up dead if they don't get the dose of Narcan, but they'll pass out. They'll pass out. The drugs are so strong, they'll pass out. And So
speaking of that, what do you think of this? That they're putting these vending machines that people can get to? I guess is this Narcan? Is that what it is?
Right.
That's that. For people who are, I guess, overdosing on these fentanyl drugs.
Because they're putting the fentanyl in cocaine. They're putting it in heroin. Yeah. They're putting it in Percocet. All these other drugs. People think they're getting one drug, and they're really getting fentanyl. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I noticed the other day when I was where was I driving? And I'm seeing more and more weed stores popping up all over. I mean, there must be hundreds of them now in the city, in the suburbs, and of course downstate. But it seems as though there's a whole new dimension. I see more weed stores than I see liquor stores. I mean, stores that are committed only to selling booze. I see more weed stores out there now, and maybe I'm just noticing them. But of course, you can buy liquor in the grocery store, the drugstore, a lot of other places. But those stores that are expressly committed to selling booze, I see more weed stores than I see those right now. I mean, Illinois has really upped the ante on the weed business. And there was a report last week, of course, we've talked about this before, that Illinois, I think there was a 41% increase last year on the number of abortions because people coming from out of state. It's a growth industry in Illinois now because people are coming from Kentucky, from Missouri, from Indiana, these places that have put these bans in place on abortion. They're coming to Illinois, and of course, the last thing is gaming. I mean, gambling. I think there are more gaming positions. The only other state with more gaming positions than Illinois is Nevada, where of course you have Las Vegas and Reno. But gambling, abortion, and we have really taken the lead in those areas.
Yeah, well, I saw a story where there was a couple. Just saw that they came out and spoke yesterday on CBS. A woman who they out of Ohio that she couldn't get a much needed termination of a pregnancy because the child would not have lasted a day or so, and because you have people who want to dictate somebody's medical decisions between them and their doctors, wanted to put the woman in jail, wanted to indict the woman if she had a medical procedure there.
Where was that?
In Ohio.
In Ohio, yeah. Well, then they just
Ohio.
passed a law. They passed a bill to They had a referendum in Ohio that legalized, made sure that that abortion would be available.
Yeah, but the governor vetoed the bill, or 2/3, not the governor, but 2/3 of the General Assembly overruled the governor's veto. And the Attorney General doubled down and said that they would indict the woman if the doctor performed the medical procedure that she needed.
So what happened
at the time?
What happened?
I think they had to go to another place to get the medical procedure that they needed. Yes.
You know, the whole notion of trying to ban abortion with a law, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I think, I've talked to any number of people over the past few months about that and saying, trying to ban abortion is causing a lot of collateral damage to the conservative movement, because what you have now are highly motivated people who want to maintain their right to have an abortion, and they have become single issue voters. And that we saw that in the midterms. The single issue voter destroyed the conservative movement because they'll put up with all this other stuff, this cultural and political and stop. Let me finish. This left-wing stuff, basically sacrificing all these other issues on the altar of abortion. They're not going to ban abortion. There were abortions even before Roe v. Wade, when abortion was illegal in most of the country. There were still abortions. There were the so-called back alley abortions. You found a state, even if you had to travel hundreds of miles to find a state to have an abortion. They never banned abortion. So spending all this energy on trying to change the law, when we should be, those of us who oppose abortion, should be working on a moral side, on an ethical side with the doctors, I'm saying, to convince people that it's wrong that way, as opposed to trying to compel them to act a certain way with a law. Not make it moral, ethical, as opposed to political, legal.
Well, it's just none of anybody's damn business what between a person and their doctor in the first place. So
A person and their doctor, yeah, I agree. I agree.
So
person and their doctor and
well,
their God, if in fact they believe in God.
none of anybody else's damn business. Period. Right?
Well,
What somebody decides.
You and your God.
What somebody decides to do with their life. So and
Right.
you know, that's their
that's
business.
true.
Right?
I agree with you 100%. Agree with you
Yeah.
100%. But a lot of people believe that God's law, "Thou shalt not murder," takes precedence in those people.
Yeah,
For
well,
those people, but other
yeah,
people
well.
don't believe. I get that they don't believe, and they can do what they got to do. But I think as believers, it's our job to convince people what we believe. That's what we do. You
No,
don't have
I
to.
there,
You don't have.
there's no. Yeah. There's
I
nowhere there's nowhere in scripture that that deletes that. You have people misusing scripture to do that. I've been a trained Christian educator for a long time. There's nowhere in
Man, you
scripture
do it all,
at
man.
all.
You do it
Okay,
all, man.
so
You're
I
an
don't do it.
expert.
Look,
on a lot
Charles,
of
you
stuff.
can
You're an expert on that, man. You're a
you
better
can. I
expert
don't
than
have to
me.
be an expert. I don't have to be an expert on it. But look,
Mark,
don't be
you're a
don't be
Christian.
condescending. Don't be
You just said,
condescending.
okay,
Don't
finish,
be
and I'm gonna talk.
condescending. Don't be condescending, Charles, because I'm not going to let you be condescending.
Mark,
Maybe you're not trained.
Mark,
Maybe you're not trained. But
I'm
because you're not
not. I'm not.
trained,
I'm not. I'm not a trained
fine.
educator.
Then
I'm
you're
not a
not
Christian
trained.
educator.
Okay,
No,
but
no.
you're not trained. But don't be condescending because somebody else
I'm not.
happens to
I'm
be.
not.
Okay.
Have I been condescending to you?
All right.
I just
Well,
said you're a Christian
well, you are.
educator.
You're trying to
have
be.
an
You're
idea,
trying to
man.
be.
You
You're
have an
trying to
idea.
be. You're trying
That's
to
your
be.
idea.
Okay. All right.
That's your idea.
So,
You're a Christian educator. You
but
know more about it.
it's nobody's business. It's nobody's business, and you can't find it anywhere where Jesus or God has said that abortion is murder. Nowhere will you find it from Genesis to Revelation. When you do,
Well,
show
they
it
talk
to
about
me.
murder. Well, they
No,
talk
no, no,
about
no, no,
murder.
no, no. No, no,
They
no, no,
talk
no, no,
about
no, no.
murder. They talk about murder, man.
Find
It's
me,
in the Ten
find the
Commandments. I don't
scripture.
know which one it
Find
is.
the scripture. Find the scripture. No, no,
It's not the
we don't
Ten
have to debate
Commandments,
it.
man.
Find the scripture.
Moses in the tablets.
No, no, no,
Thou
no.
shalt not murder.
Find
Thou shalt not
the
murder.
scripture. Find the scripture.
Of course, there's no
Since
scripture.
you know it.
There was no
Okay.
word. There was
All
no
right.
word called
Well,
abortion.
okay. Well, then let's
in that day. But there was a word called murder. There was murder.
let's move on.
And some of us believe
Let's
it's
move
murder.
on.
That's all.
Okay, well, yeah, you're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe.
Exactly.
You're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe,
And it's
but you're not entitled to, because that's what you believe, to suggest that that's what the scripture is saying.
Okay,
That's what you conservative so-called evangelicals try to do.
Okay. You finished? Are you finished?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My only point is, I don't believe that you can solve this problem with a law or a court case. You have to appeal to the people, to the heart of people, and you have to tell them that it's wrong. And that's all I do. That's all I can do. And I can withhold my own personal beliefs, but I'm not getting into all what you're talking about. I'm just telling you that's where I think we should go. We shouldn't be spending time debating it, because people are going to do what they're going to do for
It's
themselves.
none of anybody's business about somebody else's health decisions.
Mark,
it's not your business to go moralizing on somebody else about their health decisions.
I can do that anytime I want.
It's none of your business.
Evangelism, man, I can do that.
It's none of your business.
There's no
It's
problem
none of
with
your
that.
business about somebody else's health decisions between them and
I
their
can
doctor.
talk-
It's none of
Mark,
your business.
I can talk to anybody. What about the person and their pastor? What about the person and their belief system? I can appeal to that.
It's none of your business. It's none of your business. If they want to go and talk to their religious leader about that, that's their business. It's not yours.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. That you said it. You said it. If they talk to their religious,
If
faith
they
leader,
want to, that's their
if they
choice,
want
but it's
to,
none of your
exactly.
business.
Exactly. None of my business. No, Mark, this is
No,
my business, man. This is my
no, it's
business.
not. It's none of
Mark,
your
I have
business.
Mark. I have a wife. I have a daughter.
Okay,
I have a
fine.
granddaughter.
Then
I have
you and
two
your wife,
granddaughters.
don't have an
I have a
abortion.
granddaughter.
Don't have an
I can do
abortion.
that,
You and your
Mark.
wife don't have
But
an abortion. You don't want to have an abortion? Don't have one.
And I can have an idea. Mark, you're shouting. You're shouting.
Don't,
You're shouting.
Charles,
Mark, you're shouting.
don't have
Calm
one.
down,
If you
brother.
don't want to
Mark,
have an abortion,
Mark,
don't have
calm
one.
down, brother. Brother, calm down. Calm down.
No, I'm not going to calm
You
down.
down.
I'm not
You're
going to
not
calm
gonna calm
down.
down.
Don't have
Mark,
one.
you got to calm
Don't
down.
have
man.
one.
Mark, you got to calm down. Okay. You
No,
gotta calm
no, I
down.
don't.
Mark,
No, I
you gotta
don't.
calm down. Mark,
Don't.
you gotta
Look,
calm
Charles,
down. Babe.
if you
Bro,
don't want to have an abortion, you
Mark,
and your wife
you gotta
don't
calm-
have
Mark,
one.
you
But
gotta
stay out of
have-
somebody else's medical decisions
Mark,
between
you
them
can't-
and their
you
doctor.
can't have a conversation if you're
Oh,
shouting.
speaking, you know what, Charles?
have a conversation
The conservatives, you talked about conservatives who are trying to do this. Do you know that Roe versus Wade was upheld by the Supreme Court by 7-2, and 5 of them were conservative Republicans?
Fine.
5 of them, right?
Take it out of the politics. Take it away from politics.
Exactly.
Put it
It's
back-
none of your
put it back-
business.
put it back
It's none
in
of
the
your
churches.
business.
Put it back in the churches where it belongs. That's what I say. Put it back in the churches. And I talk to people about this all the time. Many of them disagree with me.
It's none of the churches. It's none of the church's business.
It is the church.
It's none of the church's business
And what
to
is-
decide for
what is the
somebody.
church's
It's
business?
none of the church's business
Mark,
to
you're
decide
shouting. Mark,
what
you gotta
somebody
stop.
does,
Mark,
somebody does
you can't
with
scream.
their doctor
You can't
about their
scream.
medical conditions.
You can't scream. It doesn't work well. It doesn't work. Be reasoned. Be calm and reasoned. You're
No, I am
screaming.
reasoned.
You're
I am
screaming.
reasoned.
You're screaming. I'm telling you what I think. You can disagree with me. That's fine, but you don't have to scream about it.
It's but
You
yeah,
don't
but
have
it's
to
none of
scream.
it's none of your
You can't-
business. I don't know
Mark,
why do you
you
want to
can't-
why
Mark, you
why
can't
why
tell
is it
me
so important?
what's my
Why is
business,
it so
man.
important? Why is it so important for you and conservatives to want to interject themselves into the medical decisions of somebody else's?
I'm saying no. I agree with you, Mark. See, that's why you're screaming for no reason. I agree with you. I'm saying take it out of the legal political realm and put it in the moral ethical realm. That's all. Because what's happening when you put it in the political legal realm, you get these one issue voters on both sides, by the way. Because in fact, the right started, the anti-abortion people started as the single issue voters. And here we are talking about something that really is a personal decision for people. And we're arguing about it and we're taking up all this time. And that's what I am on this issue.
Yeah.
Make it moral, ethical, as opposed to political, legal. We agree. And you're screaming, and I don't want to upset you because we agree.
Okay. Yeah.
We agree. Okay. My brother.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Fist bump. You know.
Fist bump. Hey, moving on to another. I read a story that in Virginia just elected its first black Speaker of the House. Guy by the name of Don Scott. 405 years after the first enslaved person, he was elected to the House. Now, I mean, as Speaker of the House, but he does have a story. I mean, this is a guy who I think he went to law school or something, and he went and I didn't get all of the details of the story, but he picked up some drugs or something unbeknownst and got convicted, went to jail, went to prison, came out, and got himself together, finished his college, and has now become the Speaker of the House.
You know, Virginia has a long history of, well, I mean, going back to the 70s, of having, I believe, the first black governor, Douglas Wilder. That was post-Reconstruction, of course. First black governor back in the 70s, Douglas Wilder. And right now they have a black lieutenant governor in Virginia.
Yes.
So they're moving right along there.
Yeah. And man, I didn't get this, but I just heard, I hear these stories, but I didn't get it all. I don't know which city it was, but there's a city now that all of the city council members, all of them are all women. There are no men.
I saw that story. I'm trying to
Did you see that?
remember where it was.
Which place was that? I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I was thinking, was it California? Was it somewhere in California, or was it the Pacific Northwest? I'm going
to look it up. All women city council.
You got it.
Let's see here. All women city council. They just swore them in. St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah, that's right on the other side of Minneapolis.
Yeah, St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm trying to see how many city council members they actually are.
There seem to be about 7.
Oh, 7. There are 7 city council members, all women under the age of 40. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I think Chicago City Council has a majority of women, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's the Chicago City Council. It's either
the majority of the city council.
The Chicago City Council, I believe, if you do a roll call, you might, it'll be awfully close. That's for sure. If it's not, think about it.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah. Wow.
A lot of women.
Okay.
A lot of the men.
Well, there's been a push. There's been a push over the past several years that said that there needs to be more women in government because the men can't seem to get their act together, and that I think that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, I think in Illinois, I mean, certainly for Black people in Illinois, I think the majority of our elected representatives are women. Women, certainly, yeah. Both in Springfield and in Chicago. Somebody out there could correct me.
I don't know. I just know that there are certainly over the past probably 15 years, there has been a significant increase in women elected to public office. Let's see. The woman, the water reclamation is headed up by a woman, right?
Carrie Steele.
Right. And then you have the clerk of the circuit court.
No, she's a woman, right? Iris Martinez.
Yeah, of course, the state's attorney, Karen Yarbrough, who is
county
clerk. Tony Pretwinkle. Yeah, Tony Pretwinkle and Juliana Stratton, and the comptroller is a woman.
Who's the comptroller?
What's her name? Is it
Susanna Mendoza.
Susanna Mendoza. Yes, Susanna Mendoza. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know if the majority, but I know that it's a lot. I agree with you that it is a lot, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that there's.
Well, let's see. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing if they are effective. They've got to be effective.
Yes. If any of them are effective on that base, that's universal, whether they're male or female.
Right.
If any of them are effective,
I'd rather have an effective city council that solved our problems. If it was all male, I wouldn't care. If it was all female, I wouldn't care as long as they solve the problems, because it seems as though in Chicago right now, we are not solving problems. I mean, you look at, did you see that story about the school board missing, was it 77,000 laptops? Yeah, 77,000 laptop computers went missing. What's up with that? I mean, how did something like that happen? Did they not have a control mechanism?
Apparently not.
Well, no, but they should. And you wonder how
Yeah.
in the world does this happen? Then of
Yeah.
course I don't know, man. I'm if I had school age children right now and I could afford it, there's no way I'd be sending them to Chicago public schools. I'd be a lot like Stacey Davis Gates. I'd find myself a private or parochial school to put my kid in, because I would not entrust my child to the Chicago public schools, because they are a complete and total mess.
Well, that's why we have to have people in leadership that's going to actually solve the problems and make our institutions work well, so that we are providing great education for people that cannot afford to go to a private school. So that's what we've got to get better representatives to take focus on solving those issues, rather than just trying to politicize everything so that somebody can have a stone to throw one way or the other.
Well, the thing about it, when kids are graduating with a 4th grade reading level, that's a very serious stone that needs to be thrown. I mean, we need to solve that problem. I mean, we've talked about it here. I mean, I know you're a very vocal, but be calm now, be calm, say something. Okay, just be calm. School choice is a way to dismantle and deconstruct the current system, because as money leaves the public schools and goes to private schools, the Chicago public schools will have to reorganize. They'll have to not spend as much money on administration and losing hardware that they give to students, and other ways that they waste money, because they'll be under extreme financial pressure, the public schools, because not every public school is going to close with school choice, because there are some good public schools out there. But if you have school choice, you put the kind of pressure on the public schools that would force them to deconstruct, to rethink the bureaucracy. And a public school system will evolve from what happens, because people are going to have public education no matter what. But if you take money out of this Chicago public schools business and you give it back to the communities, and parents have more control over what their children are learning in the classroom, then I think you can make real change with school choice. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for Black folks.
Well, some people think that is a good
Well,
thing. I just happen to think that we need to have more people in our public education system who cares about providing an excellent learning environment, and who wants to educate people. We need to have public education. Most people, I remember my my teachers who were very impactful in my life, from grammar school all the way to my college years and law school years. I remember those people who invested time, and those were people who were committed to educating. And I think that is the problem in Chicago, is that we've got to have people who care about educating people, period. That's what we have to do. And we don't have to worry about trying to create some atmosphere or a school choice or charter school or whatever to force the public schools to do with their job. Find the people who care about educating children. That's what there has to be an emphasis. And I think that also the big one of the big problems in Chicago public schools is that there is too much privatizing of Chicago public schools. More than 50% of all of the contracts of Chicago public schools is privatized. They turned it into a business rather than focusing on efficientizing and educating people. Take that business element out of it so that people are not profiting off of education. I mean, that is a huge problem.
Can I say
it's a huge
something?
problem.
Can I say
Yeah.
something? If you
Yeah.
have school choice and you have a network of privately owned schools that are receiving this $30,000 a year or whatever it is per student in Chicago, then those big contracts that you talk about are gone. Suddenly, the Betty Shabazz School is controlling its own contracts as opposed to some big business guy who's serving 200 schools or whatever the Chicago public schools are. You eliminate all that and you take it to the community where people who are on the board of a school like Betty Shabazz can make their own decisions about how their money is being spent. Now they're going to be certified. The Chicago public schools will become a regulatory agent within all of this. They're going to make sure that all of these private schools, these school choice schools, are operated to a standard, but they're not going to have the money because right now the money has perverted everything. It's made the union crazy. It's made those vendors you talk about crazy, and it made all those bureaucrats. It keeps them fat. They make $200,000 a year to sit in an office downtown, and they don't interact with children. And I think that's what school choice does. It's a way to deconstruct the not working public school system in Chicago. But it's a long way off. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
Because
well,
the
there
unions,
there
everybody
are
else-
proponents. There are proponents of school choice. I happen to not be one of them. I think number one, I think that as Harold Washington said a long time ago, you don't want your mayor controlling education. And when Daley took over public schools here in Chicago, it just continues to erode. It needs to be taken out of the hand and put into the hands of real educators. That's what needs to happen. They need to take it out of the hands of those who can weaponize it for their own political interest. I don't think that school choice is the way to do that.
It's going to be interesting to see how the negotiation goes with CTU. I think it begins this summer, I believe, and that's going to be very interesting because we'll see who represents the public in that situation. Because I can't believe that Brandon Johnson will represent the public because he has so many ties to the Chicago Teachers Union. That's not saying he can't do a good job, because maybe they know something that I don't know or you don't know and the public doesn't know. But we'll see exactly how this the union is right now on stage. They're going to have to fix this. If this isn't fixed in short order, then they're going to have some really
They're going to have to fix what?
PR problem. The public education system.
But see, Charles, here's the problem.
Mark, ask me a question and I'm answering it. They are going to have to fix it with a guy they get along with. You can't say there's any animosity between Brandon Johnson and CTU. They are going to have to fix the problem within the next couple of years before this first term is out. They're going to have to fix the problem. I'll make some huge strides toward fixing it because there are no excuses now.
Well, I think the good thing is that you now have all three of them that are at the table getting along in this discussion. CPS, because you left out the CPS because they are a central part of this. CPS, the mayor, and the CTU have to get a hold and get a handle of this. And I'm hoping that happens, because public education is critical. It's important, and they need to fix it. And I don't think that privatizing it is the way to fix it. No. Privatization of our public commons statistically has shown that when we privatize our public commons, we don't get the best bang for the buck, because the private person wants to make a profit. They're not necessarily interested in providing public service.
Well, the thing is, we're not getting our bang for the buck now. We're getting people graduating from high school reading at a 4th grade level. We're not getting it right now. Whatever we're doing now is not working. And I know the danger.
Well, you and I agree with that.
Yeah, it's not working, and something's got to change. And right now, it's the CTU. They have the power. They have the power to change it. All the things they talked about all these years, all the criticisms they've had of the 5th floor and of CPS. Now they're in a position really to do some things. They can't say they won't let us do it now. You can do it now. We're going to see what they do. We're going to see what they do.
Yeah, we'll see. Listen, again, you have the 3 agencies that are now at the table talking like we've never had them talking before, because you've had, them at odds with each other. Chicago Teachers Union at odds with the CPS. Now you have all 3 of them together, and at least at the table, willing to work with each other. So let's hope for the best for our children, because that's what's important here. Not somebody's ego, but what's best for our children and our community, our city. There's a better educated people.
Because I think a lot of what we talked about at the very beginning of this program tonight has to do with CPS and its failures. The fact that we talked about it. In fact, you even mentioned the system. There's a system, Chicago Public Schools. That's a system that is failing our communities and is causing a lot of the problems that we talked about at the very beginning of this session with Dorothy Tucker.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's systemic, and that has to be dealt. And we talk about systemic, whatever, racism, whatever. CTU's in a position now to handle it.
Well,
handle a lot of it, maybe not all of it, but to handle a lot of it. They're in position.
The partners have to be at the partners have to be at the table, and they have to put the children above whatever it is. And I think for the first time, we've never seen it before, the first time you have all 3 of them that are willing to cooperate with you. Let's see if that stands, and let's see if it becomes productive. We will see.
Yep.
We will see.
We're getting near the end of our session tonight.
Hey, do you drink bottled water?
Yeah, I have to. I don't trust the water in this building.
Yeah, there was a you got to look up this story. There was a study that just came out that showed that bottled water has more than 270 million particulates of plastic.
Really?
In it that they're saying that is leading to cancer.
I keep bottled water in the gallon jugs, and I read that after a while, a plastic jug of bottled water becomes toxic. You're right.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a while. But that plastic does leach into the water.
But they're saying that it's in every bottle.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, because
it's in every bottle.
every water that every bottle that's plastic.
Well, yes. So I've gone back to the Lake Michigan cocktail, and because I don't know anybody who has demised over drinking the Lake Michigan cocktail.
And I have no evidence of anybody who's demised drinking the plastic bottle variety either. So maybe we shouldn't worry ourselves with this.
Well, I don't worry. You know what my line is? I don't worry, I worship. So I'm just, putting the information out there that the experts are studying this stuff and bringing back to us out there. But what about this assistant principal that stole $273,000 from an after school program? How do you do that?
Well, I'll tell you how you do it. Indeed, that was what they call the Skinner West School.
Yes,
and it's in the West Loop, and it's one of the high profile, one of the top schools in the state, because basically you have a lot of yuppies who send their little kids to it. These parents give a lot of money.
Yes.
And the district does not have a system in place, uniform, where that money goes somewhere in the central place and then is dispersed from there. All the money is dispersed at the school level. Now, I can remember when Bruce Rauner, who was governor when I was a reporter, he lived in Winnetka, sent his daughter, bought a condo in Chicago so that he could send his daughter to Walter Payton. Because Walter Payton, believe it or not, Walter Payton High School has this Harvard-esque thing going. People in the suburbs think they want their kids to go to Walter Payton. So Bruce Rauner wanted his daughter to go to Walter Payton, so he gets this condo. They don't really call him out on it, but what he did a year after he sent his daughter to Walter Payton, he made them a gift of $250,000.
Hmm.
And
they're
doing that.
You can break the rules. You can break the rules as long as you can write the check, right?
As long as you write the check. Walter, what's it? They just did it. The IG, school district IG, just did an investigation where he busted this family that was sending their kid to Whitney Young. That was another one of those investigations that turned up the $77,000 in Mission Computers, the Skinner West scam. And there's Walter, this person who was sending his daughter or son to Whitney Young. He went out and bought a house on the west side in the poorest neighborhood in Chicago, or one of the poorest, and enrolled his young white, because you get points towards selective enrollment schools if you live in an economically depressed part of the city. Well, he went out and bought him a house in the poorest part of the city and listed that as his address. So his daughter or son, who otherwise would not have qualified to go to Whitney Young, was given more points because of this poor this geography. Boom, man, there's so much corruption.
Well, that's why
in Chicago public schools.
That's why I don't like the idea of privatizing any of it. Let's fix it.
Those are public schools, my brother.
Well, I know it. I know, but selective enrollment schools is just that. They get to pick their private students.
No, they get qualified.
And we pay for it. But they set up the qualifications and they pick their students, basically.
They're part of the Chicago public schools scam. That's what it is.
Then
selective enrollment schools have been abused for many years. They
of course
pick their kids. They get the kids. That's why they got the high scores. It's all a big scam. And that's why Chicago public schools need to be deconstructed, stripped down, and rebuilt so that we get rid of the corruption. But I tell you what, it's going to be tough doing it because there's too many people making too much money.
Take the fat out of it. Take the fat out of it. Take the ability for them to steal out of it, and let's put real educators in place where you don't have that sort of thing. You put real educator, people who give a care about teaching, people who want to educate. Let's make take it back to the way it was, where when I was in school and you were in school, our teachers cared about teaching. In fact, they would call your mama and say, hey, Mark didn't bring his homework in, or Mark was doing this, or Mark was doing that, or the other. They came to your house. You know, I had a teacher who was so prim and proper. She came to my house. I guess I must have had too much sugar that day. She came, drove me home, and my mother happened to be at home, and my mother was out in the yard working, and she drove me home, and she told my mother, her name was Miss Estelle Laurie, and told my mother that I was acting up a little bit. My mother never stopped doing what she was doing, and she said, well, thank you very much.
Well,
I will deal with him.
Any teacher that drives you home in this day and age would catch a case. You know, Mark, it's 9 o'clock. We gotta go. This has been a wonderful program. I really enjoyed.
It's been great.
Dorothy Tucker. I always enjoy your comments, even though they're from way out left. I can enjoy them because I want to hear them, because I need to hear them, and I would hope that people would hear some of what I say.
I like to hear yours, although they're way out in the right. But I need to hear them. You know,
right,
a baseball diamond has to have a left field and a right field.
Gotta have that. All right, my brother. Hey, man, it's been good.
Hey. All right, we'll see you next time, okay?
On intellectualradio.com.
.com. See y'all.